Could there really be any secrets still hidden beneath the waters of the Black Sea? The Black Sea is almost completely enclosed by land, connected to the Sea of Marmara through the narrow Bosporus Strait, which then links westward to the Mediterranean Sea through the Dardanelles Strait. For thousands of years, people have sailed across its waters, first in sailboats, then in steamships, ferries, luxury cruise liners, and even submarines, exploring it from coast to coast. So it would seem that there's just no way a place like the Black Sea could still be hiding any secrets at all. Hello everyone! But have you ever stopped to wonder why some people believe the Black Sea might be connected to the Great Flood from the Bible? The most astonishing part is that this isn't just some wild theory. There's actually a real connection between the Black Sea and that legendary flood. Recent scientific research has uncovered solid, undeniable evidence that supports the idea of a link between the two. That said, there are still scientists out there who challenge even this so-called airtight conclusion. Welcome everyone to our channel. Now, let's dive in together and start unraveling this incredible mystery. The Black Sea Flood Hypothesis. At that time, the sea level difference between the world's oceans and the Black Sea was about 330 feet, which caused the event to spiral into a colossal catastrophe. This theory was first introduced in 1998 by two geologists from Columbia University, William Ryan and Walter Pittman. Based on their estimates, around 7,600 years ago, as the last ice age came to an end and the glaciers melted, the water levels of the world's oceans, including the Mediterranean, suddenly began to rise. The swelling Mediterranean Sea, pushing through the Dardanelles, raised the level of the sea in Marmara. Its rising waters then breached the natural rock barrier at the modern-day Bosporus, creating a new channel to the Black Sea, which at the time was a freshwater lake. Through this newly formed channel, a massive surge of salty Mediterranean water poured into the Black Sea. The volume of seawater rushing into the Black Sea each day was around 10 cubic miles, which is nearly 200 times the amount of water flowing over Niagara Falls today. The sheer magnitude of this spectacle is almost beyond anything the human mind can even begin to picture. According to American geologists, this unbelievable waterfall may have roared on continuously for at least 300 days. Of course, without solid evidence to back it up, no one could seriously propose such a bold and dramatic theory. Ryan and Pittman, the two scientists behind this hypothesis, even published an entire book filled with data and findings that support their idea. That book is titled Noah's Flood, directly referring to the Great Flood told in the story of Noah. The foundation of every theory that attempts to explain the Black Sea's unusual characteristics is the unshakable fact that, about 8,000 years ago, this sea was actually a freshwater lake. And back then, the surface of that massive lake was far lower than it is today. According to one theory, the reason seawater spilled into the lake after the Ice Age ended was twofold. The rapid melting of glaciers caused the sea level to rise dramatically, and a massive shift in Earth's crust opened the way for the Bosporus Strait to form. What's fascinating is that the process of the Black Sea becoming saltier hasn't stopped, even now in modern times. The upper layer of the Black Sea, which is closer to fresh water, flows out through the Bosporus Strait and into the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, something very different is happening deep down. Heavier, saltier water from the Sea of Marmara is pushing back into the Black Sea, slowly creeping into its deepest layers. So in the Bosporus Strait, you actually have two separate currents moving in opposite directions at the same time. But the upper current is much stronger and more forceful than the deeper one. That upper flow is constantly being fed by many rivers that pour fresh water into the Black Sea. And although these rivers bring in far more water than what evaporates from the surface, they still don't supply enough to fully balance the fresh water flowing out. As a result, salty water from the Sea of Marmara keeps gradually pushing the fresh water deeper and deeper, causing the Black Sea to become saltier over time. Noah's Great Flood. But still, why are we suddenly talking about the story of a massive flood here? According to Ryan and Pittman, the ancient legend of the Great Flood was likely born from the enormous flooding event that overwhelmed the Black Sea. Most likely, the dramatic rush of water that carved out the Bosporus Strait sparked countless tales that evolved into the flood stories we know today. After all, the land around what would later become the Black Sea offered everything early humans needed to settle down, including both the first generations of Homo sapiens and even their Neanderthal cousins. The richness of this landscape was on par with the fertile regions where the very first ancient civilizations, like Mesopotamia and Egypt, would eventually rise. Archaeological discoveries of ancient settlements along the Black Sea coast show clear evidence that our ancestors were living in abundance during the early Neolithic period, right before the Great Flood is believed to have happened. In fact, while much of Europe was still buried under thick sheets of ice, the northern coastline of the Black Sea was already home to people living in what, for the time, must have felt like a remarkably comfortable and hospitable environment. One particularly famous find from this era is the burial site of a young couple from the Neolithic period. What makes this even more fascinating is that the young woman appears to have been some kind of priestess or spiritual figure. Her pinky finger had been deliberately cut off, and this striking detail is thought to be part of some kind of ritual practice. And the most important point here is this: all of it happened just before the Great Flood struck. As described in books written by American geologists, the speed at which the water surged in was astonishing, covering around 1,300 feet every single day. With a volume of water equal to 200 Niagara Falls crashing through the Bosporus Strait and rapidly filling what is now the Black Sea, the water level rose at an average of 14 inches per day. As a result, the shoreline of the Black Sea pushed northward by roughly 60 miles, and the old coastline vanished beneath the waves. One of the clues that point to the location of the former coastline is the fossilized remains of river deltas, formed by rivers that once flowed into the freshwater lake before the flood. In 1998, a French expedition led by Gilles Léricollet, working with William Ryan, conducted a 2,800-mile underwater survey of the Black Sea in an effort to identify the submerged shoreline. Using advanced multi-beam sonar and seismic sensors, they were able to detect the outline of that ancient coastline beneath the sea. What they found were layers of sediment typical of freshwater environments, dating back 7,000 to 8,000 years, which suddenly shifted into layers filled with marine mollusks, solid evidence supporting Ryan and Pittman's theory about a catastrophic flood. Naturally, a disaster of that scale would have been seared into the collective memory of those who survived. First passed down orally and later recorded in writing, these memories evolved into the flood legends we still tell today. However, later studies pushed the date of the Black Sea flood further back in time by roughly 1,000 years. Researchers discovered lakebed sediments between depths of 50 and 7,200 feet, filled with large numbers of shells belonging to the genus Monodacna, a typical freshwater clam species. Those shells were determined to be about 7,500 years old. What's more, they also uncovered traces of intermediate species that existed between the freshwater clams and the marine life that followed, revealing a gradual ecological shift. Based on this broader set of findings, French scientists concluded that the flood actually occurred about 8,500 years ago. The gradual sea level rise hypothesis. Even though there's some incredibly compelling evidence supporting the idea of a catastrophic flood, there's another theory that suggests the Black Sea rose gradually over time, and this idea is backed by persuasive evidence of its own. This theory also ties into the melting of glaciers after the last ice age, a process that began about 12,000 years ago, and has continued, though with some pauses, all the way up to the present day. As the glaciers melted, their runoff flowed into nearly every large body of water around the world. And in that region, the largest of them all, both then and now, was the Caspian Sea, which still spans over 143,000 square miles. Because the massive glaciers and permafrost surrounding the Caspian Sea melted, its water level actually rose above global sea level, climbing by as much as 150 feet. For comparison, today the surface of the Caspian Sea sits at about 92 feet below sea level. Once the rising waters of the Caspian reached the level of the Kuma-Manyech Depression, an ancient channel connecting it to the Sea of Azov Basin, the Caspian began to overflow, spilling its waters toward the Black Sea. This overflow traveled through what became known as the Kvalyansk Strait, pouring directly into the Black Sea. But according to this hypothesis, the rise of the Black Sea came to a halt once it reached the level of the Bosporus Strait. That's because the excess water simply drained out through the Bosporus and flowed into the Mediterranean. In fact, we even have direct evidence that water from the Black Sea made its way into the Sea of Marmara. Traces of mollusks and microscopic organisms that once lived in the Black Sea have been found in layers of sediment at the bottom of the Sea of Marmara. The introduction of this second theory, where the Caspian Sea plays a central role, sparked intense debate among scientists and researchers. A New York-based publisher even released a collection of scientific essays under the title The Black Sea Flood Question, featuring a wide range of experts sharing their often conflicting viewpoints. Still, one major puzzle remains. After all that fresh water from the Caspian poured in, how exactly did the Black Sea become salty again? But if we recall that salty water has been seeping in through the Bosporus Strait into the deeper layers of the Black Sea for at least the past 7,500 years, the process of resalinization starts to make a lot more sense. It's entirely possible that the truth lies somewhere between the catastrophic flood theory and the gradual sea level rise theory. In other words, maybe both forces played a part. A massive inflow of water that carved out the Bosporus Strait, combined with a steady influx of Caspian water through the Menyuch River basin, working together to reshape the region. That said, the flood hypothesis still seems to carry a bit more weight when it comes to overall credibility. But if that's the case, why haven't we found more signs of Neolithic settlements in the fertile, livable strip of land, more than 60 miles wide, between the modern coastline and the older Holocene shoreline? If the area had been swallowed up suddenly, we'd expect to find plenty of remains left by Homo sapiens and even Neanderthals. And yet, there's almost nothing. According to researchers, the problem is that any settlements that were there would now be buried deep beneath thick layers of sediment and underwater, making them extremely difficult to locate. That said, it's not impossible. We could try to find them using core drilling. But that brings up a tough question. Where exactly would you even start drilling? It would be like trying to find a single needle hidden somewhere inside a mountain of hay. All we can do is hope that someday a new method will be discovered to help us finally solve this mystery. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and hit that like button and share it on your social media. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Until next time, take care and goodbye.